Welcome back. We are still with Clark Vitulli. So Clark, you spend a lot of time coaching Middle Tennessee CEOs. What are common trouble areas? And you know, where do you see trouble often, and how do you coach folks on that?
Yeah, there are basically 12 things that I specialize in and that the CEOs that I work with really ask about. A couple of them are about growth. Either I'm not growing fast enough. How do I grow more? What do I do? How do I develop a better marketing philosophy or a better PR strategy? How do I do all that? And so we talk about that a lot. And the other one on growth is, I am growing too fast. Oh my gosh, I'm doing all the work, we're growing, we're doing terrific, except now I have to hire people, and as I hire people, that's going to cost more money, so now I have potentially cash flow problems. So there's issues with growing too fast as well. So that's a biggie. Another one is there's a lot of family businesses here. You may have your spouse or children or uncles, aunts, cousins, you know, in your business, and there are challenges to that. Works out fine in the beginning. They're usually cheaper to hire. That's wonderful. A few years later, they may not be working out. So now how is it that you're going to fire your spouse or other family members? And oh, that happens a lot, so we talk about that. A lot of businesses are going through transitions. A partner is leaving or something else is happening. Another big one is your industry is changing. Well, how is it changing? And is it because of things like, you know, phones and computers and electronics? Or what else about the industry is moving on that you need to adapt to and change?
Let's dig into that one. Yeah. So you can't, there's no like one concept that will fit everybody, but in general, when things are changing and people either have to adapt or not make it.
That's correct.
What are some things you talk to them about?
Well, part of it is what culture do they have? And we talk a lot about culture in our groups with CEOs and senior executives and C-suites, and that is, there are 4 elements that I believe need to be part of your culture. You may have 10 things that are part of your culture, but 4 of them better be growth, change, accountability, and fit. And so everybody wants to grow, and growing is fine, but you can't grow a plant or a dog, or a child, or a company without growth. There's going to be growth. And to do any kind of growth, there has to be change. And we have to not only be adaptable for change, but we have to seek change and look for, how is my industry changing? How is my company changing? How are my competitors changing? And it's that affinity for and seeking out change that really will help growth.
Which is not natural,
you know,
because
natural.
You know, the natural human tendency is,
I don't want to change.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to change to be able to grow. So that's really, really important. So those are big steps. And accountability, it's kind of a hot topic today, but it's always been a hot topic, and we haven't always realized it. But you have to be accountable for your actions and for your performance. And that starts with day one and the first person that you hire. How did you hire them? How did you find them? What questions did you ask them? What resources do they use to be able to be accountable to you? And do they know what accountability is? And usually when someone isn't accountable, it's our fault as the person that hired them. And you know, if they're not clear expectations, and we haven't told them what to do, when to do, how to do, and when it's due, that's unfortunate. That's not their fault. That is our fault. So have we done the right part there? And fit is the other part of culture that I think is really critical. Do they fit the organization? Does the organization fit them? Because if they don't now, it's likely that they won't later either. So learn that day one or before day one that you bring them on board.
Okay. Other common trouble areas.
Other common trouble areas, oh my gosh, partnership issues. Why would you possibly have a problem with a partner?
Oh my word.
And that's just any partnership issue. You may own 90% and they own 10, still potentially going to be issues. But the worst maybe potentially are 50-50 partners, and it sounds great going in, let's be 50-50 partners. That's really difficult because, again, that's tough to change and grow and be accountable on some of those. So that's a biggie. Starting a new company or a new division or a new aspect of your business, maybe you bring in a new product, that is a tough one. Maybe things didn't quite work out well. I also do exit planning and learning how ultimately to exit your company. And actually, the two best clients I have right now in exit planning happen to be young entrepreneurs. They're millennials. And you say, well, why would they be thinking about exit planning? And one came to me and came to a meeting that I had several CEOs in it. Most of them were in their 50s, 60s, or 70s talking about exit planning. And this young gentleman said, can I be a part of that? And I said, yeah, why? And he says, well, I'm only 30, but I want to think now about what I want to be later and how I want to exit. You know, exits can get complicated. You're either going to pass it on to your children potentially, or someone on your leadership team is going to buy the company from you, or you're going to sell to a third party. Or some companies suck all the cash out of it and close the business eventually, not through bankruptcy, but intentionally. And so those are the four exit ways. Which way is yours? When do you want to exit? How much money do you need to be able to exit and live your life comfortably? So there are a lot of elements to exit to.
Building leadership below you that can take over.
That's the biggest part, and Pete, that's what I like to stress, and that's what I work with my clients on, is that leadership team underneath you from your first hire all the way through. You know, I hired one day, and 8 years later I had 635 employees in my company, and so it grows, and it grows quick. How are you going to do it? And is everybody accountable?
Yeah.
So that's
you know, one of my favorite books is Good to Great, and there's good examples of companies, and their Rubbermaid comes to mind. The guy was brilliant, but he didn't do any planning, and the company couldn't function.
That's correct. And that's a big part of your leadership team. Building a senior leadership team, I help my companies do, and also once you have a senior leadership team, I like to work with them. I'll use books like Good to Great and things like that. And I'll also use another book out that's very popular today. It's called Traction. And when I read it one day, it was how we worked at Chrysler and Mazda and others. So it's a very popular book, and I use that as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's important.
So let's touch bases back to the very first one you brought up, which is what I hear entrepreneurs talk about a lot, which is we are not growing fast enough. We're not growing. We're not. How are we going to get some customers?
That's correct. That's a biggie. I go back to culture. Why are you not growing? Is there something in your culture? Maybe you have a great leadership team, except they don't like to change. And everything is changing today. And so it's growth and change and accountability, of course, and fit. But we talk to them about growing and define growth. And what do you mean by growth? You want to grow 10% in the next 2 years? You want to grow 50%? How do you plan to do that? Do you have the capital structure to be able to grow? Because growth is going to cost some money. You're going to have to hire people. You're going to have marketing plans, sales plans. How are you going to do that? So it's sitting with the CEO to ask those questions and have those deep discussions is what I really enjoy, because that's how I was taught, and it helped me a lot, and that's how I try and give back and help others.
So how often is lack of customer focus an issue? And what I'm saying by that is, you know, you hear the old saying, he could sell ice to Eskimos. Well, selling ice to Eskimos wouldn't be that easy. How often is lack of understanding what the market's willing to buy? How often do you see that? Yeah,
that happens more often than you would think. You'd think that somebody that has a product and wants to sell it, so how do I grow more? I guess I need to advertise more, or I need to hire more salespeople to go sell it. That's part of it. What if the product itself is not really good for consumers or whoever your target audience is? Do we know about that? Before Mazda introduced the Miata, we actually had people live with or near other folks that had small convertibles before. And we wanted to know, if you were going to buy another small convertible, what would you want that convertible to be? Front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, how fast would it go? How would you use it? How often do you actually drive it? Is it a car that you take to work or not? We knew everything about that target audience before we developed and came out with the actual product. It's those kind of things that entrepreneurs are selling a widget today, they can be sure it's the right product as well.
Awesome. Time for another break?
Great.
Ladies and gents, we'll be right back.